On an ordinary morning on the La Calada beach, Mar Chiquita province, Buenos Aires, Argentina, no one could have imagined that one of the most dramatic and moving wildlife rescues in history was about to unfold before their eyes. The white-capped waves from the Atlantic Ocean continued to crash against the sandy shore, but today they carried something unexpected, not seaweed or shells, but giant creatures of the ocean in critical condition. 6 orca whales, also known as killer whales, true kings of the ocean, with bodies measuring meters long and weighing tons, had been washed ashore, completely stranded and unable to return to the sea on their own. These are some of the most intelligent marine mammals on the planet, yet on the hard, dry sand, they suddenly appeared fragile and heartbreakingly helpless. Each whale lay on its side, its characteristic black dorsal fins raised, heavy breaths, escaping from the spiracles on its head, a silent cry for help amidst the roaring waves. News spread like wildfire. Within minutes, dozens of locals, tourists, fishermen, and volunteers swarmed the beach. There was no command, no pre-planned scenario, only pure instinct and compassion guided their steps. Professional divers, those still in their jeans and sneakers, all plunged to the icy water's edge, shoulder to shoulder with the giant whales, and began pushing. It wasn't easy work. Each orca weighed between 3 and 6 tons, the equivalent of a small truck. Their skin was slippery and wet, their bodies exhausted and panicked. The waves crashed against them constantly, sometimes knocking the rescuers over. But no one gave up. They got up, wiped the water from their faces, and continued pushing. When one person got tired, another took their place. They used buckets to pour seawater over the whales' bodies to keep them moist, preventing their skin from drying and cracking in the sun. Some simply stood and fanned the water over the animals with their hands, a small but loving gesture. 4 of the 6 orcas were successfully returned to the sea after hours of tireless effort. The moment each one slid into the waves and disappeared into the deep blue ocean, a chorus of cheers erupted from the crowd on the shore. Some shed tears, some hugged each other, some knelt on the sand and looked up at the sky in indescribable joy. It was one of the most beautiful moments that humans and nature can share. However, the story also held sorrow. The remaining 2 orcas did not survive. They were too exhausted, their bodies too badly damaged from being stranded for so long. Their deaths serve as a poignant reminder that no matter how hard humanity tries, nature still has its own cruel laws. But that doesn't diminish the beauty of what happened. 4 lives saved, and hundreds of hearts beating in unison because of their love for the ocean. Love. What drove dozens of strangers to plunge into the icy water, immersing themselves in the waves for hours without being asked, without reward, without recognition? The answer is simple. It was love. Not a calculated or planned love, but a love that spontaneously blossomed when the human heart witnessed a living being in distress and in need of help. In the hustle and bustle of modern life, it's often said that people are becoming increasingly indifferent and insensitive. But moments like these, moments captured on camera and shared worldwide, are the most vivid proof that this is not true. Compassion still exists within each person, just waiting for a moment to awaken and shine. Lessons learned. The story of rescuing the orcas in Argentina teaches us more than we realize. First, it's a lesson about the power of community. When people act together for a common goal, even seemingly impossible things become possible. Second, it's a lesson about responsibility. The orcas' stranding wasn't accidental. Climate change, ocean pollution, and human-generated underwater noise are severely impacting their natural navigation systems. And third, it's a lesson about humility. No matter how advanced our technology and intelligence, nature always reminds us that we are only a small part of this vast ecosystem. Animal protection. Orcas are symbols of strength, intelligence, and family bonds in the animal world. They live in groups, have their own language, teach their offspring, and even possess their own culture, passed down from generation to generation. Losing an orca is not just losing an individual, it's losing a member of a family, a link in a chain of knowledge passed down through centuries. Let's work together to reduce underwater noise pollution, decrease ocean plastic waste, and support bans on large-scale fishing. A heart-wrenching cry echoed from the depths of the earth. A poor baby elephant had fallen into a deep, abandoned well, unable to climb out on its own. Its tiny legs thrashed desperately against the red earth walls, its large, round eyes filled with terror. A rescue team was dispatched urgently with heavy machinery, carefully shoveling open the well's opening. The rescuers fearlessly jumped into the deep mud, using their hands to support the elephant's trembling steps, until the moment the young elephant placed all 4 legs on the ground and ran towards its waiting herd. A thunderous round of applause erupted from the onlookers. The love. Undeterred by the mud and danger, the rescuers did everything to bring a tiny life back to its family. That is love that transcends all barriers between humans and animals, the most beautiful and purest form of love. The lesson. Abandoned, uncovered wells are invisible death traps for wild animals. A simple action like covering wells or fencing off deep pits in areas where animals live can prevent countless similar tragedies. Protecting animals. Elephants are deeply emotional creatures with extraordinary memories. Let's protect elephant migration corridors and work together to build safer habitats for these gentle giants. Two abandoned, frightened bear cubs, without their mother, faced imminent danger in the torrential rains and floods. The rescue team approached gently, slowly, so as not to further frighten the cubs. Patiently and skillfully, they brought the two little bears to safety, where they would be cared for and given a chance to return to the wild. Love. Although bears can be dangerous, the rescuers approached with boundless patience and love. Before them was not a threat, but two children in need of protection. Lesson. When encountering wild animals in distress, don't panic and don't approach them on your own if you lack experience. Stay calm and contact a professional rescue team immediately. That's the right and safest way to help. Animal protection. Protecting forests means protecting the home of bears and millions of other animals. Each preserved forest holds a moment when animals are part of a perfect, natural family, and their lives are protected. In the vast, boundless prairie stretching to the horizon, where distant snow-capped mountains reflected the setting sun, a silent tragedy was unfolding. A sturdy, reddish-brown horse, a symbol of strength and freedom on the open grasslands, was now slowly sinking into a massive mudflat created by rising groundwater. Its four legs were swallowed by the thick mud, and the more it struggled, the deeper it sank, a cruel trap that nature sometimes sets without warning. The person who discovered the horse in this state immediately called for rescue. Two brave men arrived with ropes and an ATV simple equipment, but all they had. The first man didn't hesitate, wading straight into the waist-deep mud, the black mud clinging tightly to his feet. He approached the panicked horse, speaking gently to reassure it, and then began tying a rope around its head. This job demanded both physical strength and absolute composure. A frightened horse could accidentally kick and seriously injure the rescuer. But he stood there, in the cold mud, patient and steady. A second man stood outside, attaching a rope to the ATV and slowly increasing the throttle. The rope tightened, the engine roared, and the horse began to inch forward, centimeter by centimeter, out of the mud trap that was holding it captive. The horse's neighing, the squelching of the mud, the roaring of the engine all blended into a tense, drawn-out symphony. There were moments when it seemed everything would fail as the ATV's wheels slipped on the wet grass, as the rope vibrated with each pull. But the two men didn't give up. They adjusted the angle, changed the way they tied the rope, found better leverage, and continued. Then the miraculous moment arrived. The horse sprang from the mud with a loud plop, its four hooves hitting the solid ground, standing firm and shaking its mud-covered mane vigorously. It stood there for a few seconds, breathing heavily, then slowly walked across the green grass free, alive, and perhaps never before had the firm ground beneath its feet felt so precious. Love. Those two men could have done nothing. They could have watched from afar and shaken their heads, saying too dangerous, but they chose differently. They chose to wade through the mud, chose to endure the cold and exhaustion, chose to put themselves in danger because their hearts could not bear the thought of a living being left alone in despair. That was not just courage, it was love in its purest and most powerful form. Love needs no words, no reason, only action. Lesson. The story of the horse trapped in the mud reminds us that in the natural world, danger never gives warning. A seemingly ordinary swamp can be a death trap for animals weighing hundreds of kilograms. The lesson here isn't just for livestock farmers or animal rescuers, it's for all of us. Never ignore someone, human or animal, drowning and in need of help. Timely intervention always makes the difference between tragedy and miracle. Protecting animals. Wild horses are symbols of freedom and indomitable spirit on the vast savannas. Yet, more and more of their lands are shrinking due to agriculture and urbanization, forcing them to move through more dangerous terrain. Support the conservation of natural savanna areas, limit construction in wild horse migration zones, and if you live near wildlife, always be vigilant and ready to help when needed. Because sometimes, a rope and a brave heart are enough to change everything. On the dry, hard sands under the clear blue sky of Namibia, a seal lay exhausted, its entire body tightly bound in a tangle of green ropes from abandoned fishing gear. Unable to move, unable to free itself, the seal looked up with wide, terrified eyes as the Namibian conservation team approached. With specialized gloves and sharp cutting knives, each rope was carefully and patiently untied without causing any further injury. The moment the last rope was removed, the seal stretched and leaped towards the waves. Freedom! Love! These conservationists have chosen to dedicate their lives to protecting marine life. Each rescue is more than just a job for them. It's a mission stemming from a heart full of love for the ocean and all its creatures. Lesson: ghost nets, fishing gear left behind at sea and on shore are silently killing millions of marine creatures every year. This is a direct consequence of human irresponsibility. Remember, our trash doesn't disappear, it just turns into a death trap for innocent lives. Protecting animals. Support organizations that collect used fishing gear, participate in beach cleanups, and say no to single-use plastics. Clean oceans are safe homes for seals and millions of other marine creatures. In the quiet forest, 2 male deer had fought and were now trapped. Their antlers were inextricably entangled. Both were exhausted, lying on the ground in a strange and painful position. Rescuers approached carefully, holding each deer to prevent them from struggling and causing further injury. Using specialized tools, they cut away the entangled antlers, and then the 2 deer stood up, staggered a few steps, and ran into the depths of the forest to the sighs of relief of the onlookers. The lesson: in the eyes of the rescuers, the 2 deer were both rivals, but both were suffering creatures in need of help. True love doesn't judge, it acts purely out of compassion. The lesson: in nature, unexpected accidents like this happen more often than we think, especially during the fighting season of antlers. Timely and appropriate human intervention is not an invasion of nature, but a necessary humane act when animals cannot escape danger on their own. Animal protection. When habitats shrink, deer species are forced to live in crowded conditions, making conflict more likely. Protecting forests and vast natural spaces is the best way to help them live peacefully and safely in their own world. Rescuing an injured shark washed ashore. Surfers and rescue workers didn't hesitate to use their surfboards as a stretcher, working together to carry the shark. Sharks play an extremely important role in the ocean ecosystem. Don't let prejudice and fear turn our backs on creatures in need. Millions of sharks are killed for their fins. Say no to shark fin soup and shark products so that the ocean may have its best protectors. A small monkey lay motionless. No longer breathing, it seemed too late. But the rescuer didn't give up, persistently performing CPR until miraculously, the monkey began to move again. Love. Each breath blown into the tiny monkey's body was a beat of loving heart. This is the most beautiful image of the connection between humans and animals. Lesson: animal first aid skills are something we should all learn. Sometimes, just a few minutes of proper CPR. A deer was rescued after being strangled by a giant python in the middle of the road, unable to struggle. Bystanders stopped their cars and bravely rushed in, carefully separating the python's coils, and the deer was freed in its last breath. Rescuers rescued a panicked golden retriever that had fallen into a deep ditch, desperately clinging to the slippery banks. A group of young people risked rescuing a rare sea turtle whose mouth and neck were tightly entangled in fishing nets, preventing it from eating, drinking, or breathing normally. A team of veterinarians, wearing medical gloves and using specialized scissors, meticulously untangled each strand of net. This was an emotional rescue operation. The love in the hands of these gloved hands gently supporting this ancient sea creature. This love was expressed through every professional and dedicated movement. Rescuers rescued a rare white wolf lying motionless in the forest, exhausted and in critical condition. Without hesitation, the 2 people who discovered it knelt down, using their bare hands to massage and warm the wolf, each gesture as gentle as caring for a loved one. Rescued a deer that fell into a ditch. During the rescue, the deer had fallen into a ditch beside the road, struggling in panic. The excavator drivers moved it to the side of the road, lowered it to the ground, gently, step by step, until the deer was safely placed back on the road. Please give me a like and subscribe for more videos.